The coffee shop receipt read $11.47. Claire Dawson had $8.23. Behind her, the lunch rush was building, impatient feet shuffling, someone's phone buzzing with annoyance. Her card had declined twice. The barista's smile was thinning. Then a quiet voice beside her said, "I've got it." And a stranger's credit card appeared over her shoulder. She should have just said thank you. She should have walked away. But Claire Dawson didn't let debts go unpaid, even $3 ones to men she'd never met. That choice, to return what she owed, would unravel every wall she'd built around her heart and her children, and force her to answer the question she'd been avoiding for years. What if someone actually stayed? If you want to see how a single act of kindness between two guarded strangers becomes the foundation of something real, stick with me until the end. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Ethan Carter had exactly 43 minutes for lunch. Not 45, not an hour, 43. That's what happened when you were the only functioning IT person at a logistics company held together by duct tape, outdated software, and the sheer willpower of 3 overworked managers. He'd learned to operate his life in blocks. Wake up at 6, get his daughter Mia to school by 7:40, arrive at work by 8:15, survive until 5:30, pick up Mia, dinner, homework, bedtime routine, collapse. Repeat. The coffee shop on Maple Street was part of the routine. Tuesday and Thursday lunches, same order, turkey avocado wrap, black coffee, sometimes a cookie, if he remembered to eat breakfast. The place was small, comfortably worn, with mismatched chairs and local art nobody ever bought hanging crooked on brick walls. He liked it because it didn't try too hard. He was third in line when he noticed her. She stood at the register, one hand digging through a canvas tote bag that looked like it had survived a war, the other holding her phone like she was mentally calculating something that wasn't adding up. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, a few dark strands escaping around her face. Scrubs, faded blue, the kind that had been washed 1,000 times. She looked tired in the specific way people who work too hard and sleep too little always do. The barista, a college kid named Sam who Ethan recognized from previous visits, smiled politely. "That'll be 11:47. The woman, Claire, though Ethan didn't know that yet, pulled out a small wallet, unzipped it, and her face changed, just slightly, a tightness around her eyes. The kind of look that said she already knew what she was about to find. She counted bills, once, twice, then coins. "I have 8.23, she said quietly. Sam's smile flickered. "Oh, do you want me to take something off?" Behind Ethan, someone sighed loudly. Another person's phone chimed. The line was growing. Claire's shoulders pulled back slightly, her jaw setting. "Yeah, just the sandwich. I'll keep the coffee." "You sure? It's fine." Her voice was even, controlled, but Ethan caught the slight flush creeping up her neck. He didn't think. Didn't weigh it. Just stepped forward and slid his card across the counter beside her wallet. "I've got it." Both Claire and Sam turned to look at him. For a second, nobody moved. "I'm sorry?" Claire's eyebrows pulled together. "It's not a big deal," Ethan said, keeping his voice casual. "Just cover it." "I don't—" She stopped, seemed to recalibrate. "That's really not necessary." "I know, but the line's backing up and I've got about 40 minutes left on my lunch break, so—" He gestured vaguely towards Sam, who was still holding the card reader like he wasn't sure what protocol applied here. Claire stared at him for another beat. Ethan couldn't quite read her expression, somewhere between grateful and guarded, like she was trying to figure out what this was going to cost her later. Finally, she exhaled. "Okay, thank you, seriously." "No problem." Sam processed the transaction. Ethan ordered his usual. Claire took her bag and coffee, gave him one last glance, cautious, searching, and left without another word. He told himself he'd forget about it by the time he got back to the office. He didn't. The next day, Ethan was back at the coffee shop. Not because of her, he had a system and Wednesday wasn't part of it, but because the server room's cooling unit had died at 2 p.m., and he'd spent 3 hours hunched under a desk rerouting cables in a space that smelled like burning plastic and desperation. He needed caffeine and something resembling food. He was at the counter halfway through his order when someone touched his shoulder. He turned. It was her. Same scrubs, different color. Hair down this time, falling just past her shoulders. She held out a $5 bill. "For yesterday," she said. Ethan blinked. "You didn't have to do that." "I know, but I don't like owing people." There was something firm in the way she said it. Not rude, just clear. This wasn't about gratitude. It was about balance. He took the bill. "Fair enough." She nodded, seemed about to leave, then hesitated. "You come here a lot?" "Tuesdays and Thursdays, usually. Sometimes Wednesdays when work tries to kill me." A small smile tugged at her mouth. "Sounds like my kind of week." "Yeah?" "Yeah, I'm here Tuesdays and Fridays. Works 3 blocks that way." She gestured vaguely east. "Clinic intake, lots of paperwork, lots of people who need things I don't have the authority to give them." "Sounds exhausting." "It is." She paused. "But someone's got to do it." There was a beat of silence, not uncomfortable, just present, like neither of them was in a rush to end the conversation, but neither knew quite how to continue it. Finally, she shifted her bag on her shoulder. "Anyway, thanks again. For yesterday." "Any time." She gave him one last quick smile and walked toward a table by the window. Ethan collected his order, found a spot near the back, and tried to focus on his sandwich. He looked up twice. Both times she was staring at her laptop, brow furrowed in concentration. He left before she did. It became a pattern, not intentional, not planned, but over the next 2 weeks their schedules aligned just enough that they kept running into each other. A nod at the counter, a hey when passing tables. Once she asked if the turkey wrap was any good. He said yes. She ordered it the next time. Then, on a Thursday that felt grayer than usual, Ethan arrived to find every table full except one, hers. She looked up as he hovered nearby, food tray in hand. "You can sit," she said, nudging the chair across from her with her foot, "unless you're one of those people who needs alone time to eat." "I'm not," he said, sitting down. "I just didn't want to assume." "I'm Claire, by the way." "Ethan." They shook hands across the table. Hers was warm, her grip firm. "So," Claire said, leaning back with her coffee. "IT, right? You mentioned servers last week." "Yeah, nothing glamorous, mostly keeping old systems from imploding. Better than my job. I just watch them implode and write reports about it." Ethan laughed. It surprised him how easy it was. They talked for 20 minutes, about work, about the coffee shop's tendency to over-roast their beans, about the weather, which had been stuck in a depressing drizzle for 6 days straight. It was surface-level stuff, the kind of small talk people make when they're testing the waters, but it didn't feel hollow. When his phone buzzed, a reminder that he had 14 minutes to get back, Ethan stood reluctantly. "I should go." "Yeah, me too." Claire gathered her things, then paused. "This was nice." It was. "Maybe we'll run into each other again." "I'm here Tuesdays and Thursdays," she smiled. "Good to know." The next Tuesday, she was already there when he walked in. This time she waved him over before he even ordered. It kept happening. Small conversations became longer ones. Surface topics gave way to real ones. Claire mentioned her job was draining, not because of the work, but because of the system that made it impossible to actually help people. Ethan admitted that he used to love coding, but somewhere along the way it had turned into glorified fire prevention. "You ever think about doing something else?" Claire asked one afternoon. "All the time," Ethan said, "but I've got a daughter. Stability beats passion when you're paying for daycare and trying to keep the lights on." It slipped out before he thought about it. He waited for the usual reaction, the slight withdrawal, the change in tone that happened when single dads mentioned kids to women who weren't expecting it. But Claire just nodded. "How old?" 7. "Mia. She's everything, honestly. That's a good age, still thinks you're cool, but starting to have opinions." Ethan laughed. "Exactly. What about you? You have kids?" Claire's expression shifted, just barely, a flicker of something he couldn't name. "Yeah," she said after a moment. 2, 6, and 9. Boys? Girls? One of each. Liam and Sophie. Good combo." "It's chaos," Claire said lightly, "but it works." Ethan noticed she didn't offer more, didn't mention a partner, didn't elaborate on logistics. And he didn't push. People had boundaries. He respected that. but he also noticed the way her voice softened when she said their names. 3 weeks in, Ethan realized he was looking forward to Tuesdays and Thursdays in a way that had nothing to do with the coffee. It was Claire. The way she laughed at his terrible jokes, the way she didn't bullshit him when he asked how her day was, the way she listened, really listened, when he talked about Mia's latest obsession with dinosaurs. And somewhere in the middle of a conversation about the absurdity of health insurance, Ethan decided to risk it. "So," he said, setting his coffee down carefully, "this might be forward, but would you want to grab dinner sometime, like not here, somewhere with actual plates?" Claire froze, just for a second. Then she smiled, but it was cautious. "Are you asking me on a date?" "Yeah, I am." She studied him. He couldn't tell what she was thinking. "Okay," she said finally. "Yeah, I'd like that." Relief hit him harder than he expected. "Yeah?" "Yeah." She pulled out her phone. "Give me your number. We'll figure out when." They exchanged numbers. Made plans for Saturday. Nothing fancy, a small Italian place downtown that didn't require reservations. When Ethan walked back to work that afternoon, he felt lighter than he had in months. Saturday came. Ethan dropped Mia off at his sister's place, ignored her knowing smirk, and arrived at the restaurant 5 minutes early. Claire showed up right on time, wearing jeans and a dark green sweater that made her eyes look brighter. "You made it," he said. "I did." She smiled, and this time it was easy, unguarded. They got a table near the back, ordered wine, talked about everything and nothing. Her terrible parallel parking, his failed attempts at sourdough during lockdown, the weird overlap in their music taste. It was easy, comfortable, the kind of first date that didn't feel like one. Then, halfway through dessert, Claire set down her fork. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. Ethan's chest tightened. "Okay." She met his eyes. Her hands were folded on the table, fingers laced tight. "I really like this. You, tonight. But I need you to know." She took a breath. "I'm a single mom. 2 kids. And if that's a deal breaker, you can leave. I won't be mad. I've done this before, and I'd rather know now than 3 months from now." Her voice was steady, but Ethan could see the tension in her jaw, the way she was bracing. He didn't look away. "Claire," he said slowly, "I'm a single dad. I told you that." "I know, and I asked you out anyway, knowing you have kids, so why would I leave now?" She blinked. "Because most men do." The weight of that sentence sat between them. Ethan leaned forward. "I'm not most men. You say that now. I mean it." His voice was quiet, but firm. "I'm not here because I think you're uncomplicated. I'm here because I like you, the real you, not some version that pretends kids don't exist." Claire stared at him. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then, slowly, her shoulders dropped. The tension bled out of her. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay?" "Yeah." She smiled, small, tentative, but real. "Okay." Ethan reached across the table. She met him halfway, their hands folded together, warm and steady. And for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt like they had to brace for the other shoe to drop. They started seeing each other regularly after that. Coffee shop lunches turned into evening phone calls, text threads that stretched late into the night, stolen hours between work and bedtime routines. It was good, better than good. But Ethan started to notice something. Claire kept him separate. She talked about her kids, funny stories, daily chaos. But she never invited him into it. No suggestions to meet them, no offers to come over. When he asked what her weekend plans were, she'd say family stuff and leave it vague. At first, he told himself it made sense. They were still new, she was being cautious. But after 6 weeks, it started to feel like more than caution. It felt like a wall. One night, after Mia was asleep, Ethan texted Claire. "Can I ask you something?" Her reply came fast. "Of course. Why haven't I met your kids yet?" The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Can we talk about this in person?" "Yeah, when? Tomorrow? Lunch?" "I'll be there." The next day, Claire was already at their usual table when Ethan arrived. She looked tired, more than usual. He sat down across from her. Didn't order anything. "Talk to me," he said gently. Claire exhaled slowly, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup she hadn't touched. "I'm scared," she said finally. "Of what?" "Of them getting attached." Her voice cracked slightly. "Ethan, I've introduced exactly 2 men to my kids in the last 4 years. Both times they stuck around just long enough for Sophie and Liam to start asking questions. Then they left, and I had to explain why another person disappeared." Ethan's chest ached. "I can't do that to them again," Claire continued. "I can't let them meet someone who might not stay. And I know that's not fair to you, but it's fair," Ethan interrupted quietly. "You're protecting them. I get that. But I'm not going anywhere, Claire." He leaned forward. "I'm not those guys. I'm not here because this is easy or convenient. I'm here because I want to be. And yeah, it's scary. But keeping me locked out forever isn't going to make it less scary. It's just going to keep you alone." Tears welled in her eyes. She blinked them back. "What if you change your mind?" "What if I don't?" She looked at him for a long time, searching. "I need time," she said finally. "To think, to prepare them. Okay? Okay. And if you meet them," she added, voice firmer now, "you come as a friend, not a boyfriend, not yet." "Deal." She nodded, let out a shaky breath. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan reached across the table, took her hand. "We'll figure it out," he said. And for the first time, Claire let herself believe him. 3 days passed before Claire texted him again. Ethan had given her space, hadn't pushed, though every hour of silence felt heavier than the last. He'd kept himself busy, fixed Mia's bedroom lamp, updated inventory software at work, meal prepped enough chicken and rice to last through the apocalypse. Anything to keep his hands occupied and his mind from spiraling into the possibility that she'd decided this was too complicated, that he was asking for too much, that the wall between them was permanent. Then, Thursday afternoon, his phone lit up. Saturday, 2 p.m. "My place. If you're still okay with this?" He typed back immediately. "More than okay. Send me your address." Her response came with the address and one additional line. "They think you're my friend from work. Let's keep it that way for now." "Understood." He stared at the message for a long moment, then set the phone down and exhaled slowly. This was happening. He was about to step into the part of Claire's life she'd kept carefully locked away, and he absolutely knew, that how he showed up in the next 48 hours would determine whether this relationship had a future or quietly fell apart. No pressure. Saturday arrived cold and clear. Ethan dropped Mia at his sister's again. She was spending the afternoon with her cousin, which meant he didn't have to explain where he was going or why he looked like he was preparing for a job interview. He changed shirts 3 times, settled on a plain navy Henley and jeans, then stood in front of the mirror and told himself to breathe. He wasn't meeting the president. He was meeting 2 kids. 2 kids who mattered more to Claire than anything else in the world. That thought didn't exactly calm his nerves. The address led him to a neighborhood about 15 minutes south of downtown. Older houses, small yards, the kind of street where people still knew their neighbors' names. Claire's place was a narrow 2-story with peeling white paint and a porch that sagged slightly on one side. The lawn was patchy but mowed. A plastic slide sat in the side yard, faded blue from too many summers in the sun. A tricycle lay on its side near the steps. It looked lived in, real. Nothing like the polished, curated version of life people tried to project. Ethan climbed the porch steps and knocked. Footsteps thundered inside, small, fast, chaotic. Then the door swung open, and a boy with dark hair and Claire's eyes stared up at him. "Who are you?" the boy asked bluntly. "Liam? What did I say about opening the door without asking?" Claire's voice came from somewhere deeper in the house, exasperated but not angry. "Mom said to ask first, but I wanted to see," Liam said over his shoulder, still blocking the doorway like a tiny, suspicious bouncer. Ethan crouched down to the boy's level. "I'm Ethan. Your mom invited me over. You must be Liam." Liam's eyes narrowed. "How do you know my name?" "Your mom talks about you sometimes." "What'd she say?" "That you're 6 and you like dinosaurs." Liam's expression shifted, suspicion giving way to interest. "I like the ones with the big teeth. T-Rex and velociraptors. They hunted in packs. Smart choice. Pack hunters are always the most dangerous. Exactly. Liam nodded approvingly, then turned and yelled back into the house. Mom, he knows about dinosaurs. Claire appeared in the hallway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked frazzled, hair pulled back in a ponytail, old jeans, a t-shirt with a faded logo he couldn't quite make out. No makeup, the realest version of her he'd seen yet. Liam, let him in, she said, shaking her head. Then to Ethan, softer. Sorry, he's the welcoming committee. It's fine, Ethan said, stepping inside as Liam finally moved out of the way. I've been thoroughly vetted. The inside of the house matched the outside, small, crowded, lived in. Toys scattered across the living room floor. A pile of laundry on the couch, kids' drawings taped to the walls. The TV was on, some animated movie playing at low volume. A girl sat cross-legged in front of it, older than Liam, wearing purple leggings and a hoodie 2 sizes too big. Sophie, Claire called, come say hi. The girl turned, regarded Ethan with the kind of cool, assessing stare that only 9-year-olds could pull off, then stood and walked over. Hi, she said flatly. Hi, I'm Ethan. I know, Mom said. Sophie glanced at Claire. Is he staying for dinner? If he wants to, Claire said carefully. Sophie shrugged. Okay. Then to Ethan, do you like mac and cheese? I do. Good. That's what we're having. She returned to the TV without further comment. Liam tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Do you want to see my dinosaur collection? Liam, give him a second to breathe, Claire said, though there was warmth in her voice now. It's okay, Ethan said. I'd love to see them. Liam's face lit up. He grabbed Ethan's hand and dragged him toward the stairs. They're in my room. I have 17. Well, 16 because one lost its head, but I'm going to fix it. Claire caught Ethan's eye as he was pulled past her. She mouthed thank you, and he nodded. Liam's room was small and exploding with energy. Bunk beds with unmade sheets, posters of dinosaurs and superheroes covering the walls, toys everywhere. Liam dropped to his knees beside a plastic bin and started pulling out figures, narrating each one with intense seriousness. This is a Stegosaurus. He's a herbivore, so he doesn't eat meat, but he has those plates on his back for protection, and this one's a Triceratops. He's my second favorite because he has 3 horns and a frill, and he could fight a T-Rex if he had to. Ethan sat on the floor and listened, asked questions. Let Liam explain the difference between the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods with the confidence of a kid who'd watched every dinosaur documentary ever made. After 20 minutes, Claire appeared in the doorway. Liam, let Ethan come back downstairs. Dinner's almost ready. But I didn't show him the pteranodon yet. After dinner, Liam sighed dramatically, but started putting the dinosaurs back. Ethan stood, brushed off his jeans, and followed Claire down the narrow staircase. Sorry, she said quietly. Once he starts, he doesn't stop. Don't apologize. He's great. She smiled, but it was tentative. They're on their best behavior. This won't last. I'm not expecting perfect. Good. Because you won't get it. Dinner was chaotic in the way only meals with young kids could be. Liam talked nonstop, mostly about dinosaurs, but occasionally veering into tangents about his friend at school who could burp the alphabet. Sophie was quieter, watching Ethan with guarded curiosity, occasionally asking questions that felt like tests. Do you have kids? She asked at one point. I do. A daughter. She's 7. What's her name? Mia. Does she go to our school? No, different district. Sophie considered this. Does she like dinosaurs? Not as much as Liam. She's more into space right now. Liam perked up. Space is cool. Did you know Jupiter has a storm that's been going for hundreds of years? I did know that, Ethan said. It's called the Great Red Spot. Exactly, Liam beamed. Claire caught Ethan's eye across the table, and for a moment something passed between them. Relief, maybe, or gratitude. He wasn't performing. He wasn't trying to win them over with forced enthusiasm or treats. He was just there, present, steady. After dinner, Sophie helped clear the table without being asked. Liam returned to his dinosaurs. Claire started washing dishes, and Ethan joined her at the sink. You don't have to do that, she said. I know. He picked up a dish towel and started drying. They worked in silence for a few minutes, the sounds of the kids playing in the next room filling the space. "They like you," Claire said quietly. "Yeah?" "Liam doesn't show his dinosaurs to just anyone, and Sophie actually looked at you, which is more than she does for most people." "They're good kids, Claire." "They are," her voice softened, "but they're also a lot. And this," she gestured vaguely around the kitchen, the mess, the noise, "this is my life. It's not going to get simpler or quieter or easier." Ethan set down the dish he was drying and turned to face her. "I'm not looking for simple." "You say that now. I mean it." He held her gaze. "I'm not here because I think you're going to fit neatly into my life. I'm here because I want to be part of yours, mess and all." Claire's eyes glistened. She looked away, blinking quickly, then let out a shaky breath. Okay. Yeah." She turned back to him, and this time she smiled, small but real. "Okay." From the living room, Liam's voice rang out. "Mom, Sophie won't let me have the remote." "Because you always pick boring stuff," Sophie shot back. Claire sighed, but there was fondness in it. "Duty calls." She dried her hands and headed into the living room. Ethan followed, settling onto the far end of the couch, while Claire mediated the remote dispute with the patience of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Eventually, they settled on a nature documentary, compromise that satisfied neither kid but prevented bloodshed. Ethan stayed until after 8, helped put away toys, read Liam a book about dinosaurs, said goodnight to Sophie, who gave him a small wave from the stairs, and when Claire walked him to the door, she didn't say much, but she didn't have to. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For today." "Any time." She hesitated, then leaned up and kissed his cheek. "Text me when you get home." "I will." He walked to his car feeling lighter than he had in weeks. The text started that night and didn't stop. Daily check-ins that evolved into longer conversations. Claire sent him photos, Liam's latest dinosaur drawing, Sophie's book report that got an A. Ethan sent back pictures of Mia's science project, a volcano made of papier-mâché that had exploded prematurely in the kitchen. They talked about the small things, the hard things. Claire admitted she was exhausted most of the time, that she felt like she was failing at everything even when she knew she wasn't. Ethan told her about the guilt he carried from his divorce, the fear that he wasn't enough for Mia, that she deserved better than a dad who worked too much and forgot to pack her lunch half the time. "You're a good dad," Claire texted one night. "Mia's lucky to have you. You're a good mom. Your kids are lucky too. Some days I'm not sure they'd agree. They would. Trust me." 2 weeks after that first visit, Claire invited him over again. This time it felt less like a test and more like an invitation into normalcy. Ethan brought pizza. Liam showed him a new dinosaur he'd gotten for his birthday. Sophie asked if he wanted to play a board game, which turned into a cutthroat session of Uno that Ethan barely survived. Afterward, once the kids were in bed, Claire poured 2 glasses of wine and they sat on the porch in the cold, wrapped in blankets. "This is nice," she said quietly. "It is." "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." Ethan turned to look at her. "What do you mean?" "I keep waiting for you to realize this is too much, that I'm too much." "Claire, I know what you're going to say, but I've heard it before, Ethan. I'm not going anywhere. This doesn't scare me." And then 3 months later, they're gone. He set his glass down on the porch railing and shifted to face her fully. "I can't prove this to you with words, I know that, but I can show up, every time, until you believe it." She stared at him, eyes searching his face in the dim light. "Why? Why what? Why are you doing this? You could date someone without kids, someone easier." "I don't want easier." His voice was steady, certain. "I want you." Claire's breath hitched. She looked away, blinking rapidly, and when she looked back, tears were slipping down her cheeks. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know. I'm scared of letting you in and losing you. I know." He reached out, cupped her face gently. "But you're not going to lose me." She leaned into his hand, closed her eyes. "Promise?" "Promise." They sat like that for a long time, the night settling around them, the distant hum of traffic the only sound. When Claire finally pulled back, she wiped her eyes and laughed shakily. Sorry, I'm a mess. You're not. I am. But thank you for lying. He smiled. I'm not lying. She kissed him then, soft, tentative, like she was still afraid it might disappear. But Ethan kissed her back, steady and sure. And when they finally pulled apart, Claire was smiling. Stay, she said quietly. Tonight? No, I mean, stay in this. With me. With us. Ethan's chest tightened. I'm not going anywhere. Okay. She nodded like she was trying to convince herself. Okay. The weeks that followed fell into a rhythm. Ethan came over twice a week, sometimes more. He learned Sophie's bedtime routine, the specific way Liam liked his sandwiches cut, the brand of coffee Claire couldn't function without. He fixed the porch railing that had been sagging for months, helped Liam build a dinosaur diorama for school, listened to Sophie complain about a girl in her class who kept copying her homework. He didn't try to be their dad. He didn't overstep, but he was present, and that was enough. One Saturday afternoon, Claire's dishwasher broke. She'd been running it when it started making a horrible grinding noise, then stopped completely. She called Ethan, half joking, asking if he knew anything about appliances. I'll take a look, he said. He showed up an hour later with a toolbox he'd borrowed from his sister's husband. Liam immediately wanted to help, so Ethan let him hold the flashlight while he pulled the dishwasher out and inspected the motor. What's wrong with it? Liam asked. Something stuck in the pump. Probably a piece of food or a small toy. I didn't put any toys in there. I'm not saying you did. Ethan grinned. But things happen. He fished around inside, pulled out a small plastic dinosaur wedged in the mechanism, and held it up. Liam's eyes went wide. That's my Stegosaurus! I thought I lost it. Mystery solved. Claire, watching from the doorway, laughed so hard she had to sit down. Ethan got the dishwasher running again. Liam reclaimed his dinosaur. And when Claire kissed Ethan later that night, after the kids were asleep, she whispered, You're kind of amazing. You know that? I fixed a dishwasher. It's not that impressive. It's not about the dishwasher. He knew what she meant, but there were still moments when Claire pulled back. Small things. She'd hesitate before inviting him to something involving the kids' school. She'd mention an event, a parent-teacher conference, a school play, and then add, almost as an afterthought, but you don't have to come. One night, after Sophie's choir concert, Ethan brought it up. They were in Claire's car driving home. The kids were in the back, half asleep. Claire's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. You keep doing that, Ethan said quietly. Doing what? Giving me an out, like you're expecting me to take it. Claire was silent for a long moment. Then she exhaled slowly. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Let someone be, permanent. I keep bracing for you to leave. And I know that's not fair to you, but I can't just turn it off. Ethan reached over, covered her hand with his. I'm not asking you to turn it off. I'm just asking you to let me keep showing up. Her fingers tightened around his. Okay. Okay? Yeah. Her voice was thick. Okay. In the back seat, Liam stirred. Are we home yet? Almost, buddy, Claire said, her voice steadying. Ethan looked out the window at the darkened streets, the houses lit from within, lives unfolding behind every door. And he thought about how much had changed in the last few months. How Claire had gone from a stranger at a coffee shop to the person he thought about first thing in the morning and last thing at night. How her kids had gone from abstract concepts to real, complicated, wonderful people he genuinely cared about. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple. But it was real. And that was enough. 3 months in, Ethan realized he'd stopped counting the days since he'd met Claire. Time had shifted from something he measured in careful increments, work blocks, custody schedules, bedtime routines, to something that simply flowed. Tuesdays weren't just coffee shop days anymore. They were the afternoons he'd pick up Liam from soccer practice because Claire had to work late. Fridays weren't just end-of-week relief. They were movie nights with all the kids piled on Claire's couch, arguing over whether to watch animation or adventure. He'd integrated into their lives so gradually that he couldn't pinpoint the exact moment it happened. One day he was the guy who occasionally came over for dinner, And the next, he was the person Sophie texted when she needed help with her math homework because her mom was terrible at fractions. It felt natural, easy even, in the way that complicated things sometimes did once you stopped fighting them. But Claire still had walls. They were quieter now, harder to spot, but Ethan felt them. In the way she'd tense slightly when he talked about future plans that included her. In the careful distance she maintained when other parents at school events asked who he was. A friend, she'd say, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and Ethan would nod and play along because he understood what she wasn't saying. That letting him be more than that in public meant admitting he might stay, and admitting that terrified her. He didn't push. Not yet. But he was starting to wonder how long they could sustain this halfway space they were living in. The breaking point came on a Thursday that started like any other. Ethan was at work, elbow deep in a server migration that had already gone wrong twice when his phone rang. Claire's name lit up the screen. He almost let it go to voicemail. She knew he was swamped today, but something made him answer. "Hey, I'm kind of in the middle of... Liam's sick." Her voice was tight, strained. "The school just called. Fever, throwing up. I'm on my way to get him, but I have a meeting in an hour that I absolutely cannot miss, and I don't know what to do." Ethan was already standing, grabbing his keys. "I'll get him." "What? No, you're at work. I can leave. It's fine." "Ethan, you don't have to..." "Claire." He kept his voice calm, steady. "I'll get him. Text me the school address." There was a pause. He could hear her breathing, could almost feel her trying to decide whether to accept or keep fighting. "Okay," she said finally, quietly. "Okay. Thank you. I'll call you when I have him." He hung up, told his boss there was a family emergency, and was in his car 5 minutes later. The school was 20 minutes across town. He made it in 15. The front office was the usual controlled chaos. Kids coming and going, phones ringing, a harried secretary trying to manage 3 conversations at once. Ethan approached the desk and gave his name, explained he was there to pick up Liam Dawson. The secretary frowned, scrolling through her computer. "And you're listed as an authorized pickup?" Ethan's stomach dropped. I'm not sure. His mom called me to get him. She's stuck at work." "I'm sorry, but if you're not on the authorized list, I can't release him to you. School policy." "Can you call her? She'll confirm." "We've already called." She didn't answer. Of course she didn't. She was probably in the car, racing to get here herself, phone buried in her bag. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, trying to stay calm. "Look, I understand the policy, but he's sick. He's 6. Can you just try her again?" The secretary's expression softened slightly, but she shook her head. "I'm sorry, I really am, but unless his mother shows up or confirms you're authorized, my hands are tied." Ethan pulled out his phone, texted Claire. "At school. Not on authorized pickup list. They won't release him to me." 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, a message came through. "On my way. 10 minutes." He waited in the office, watching the clock tick forward, feeling useless. Through the glass window, he could see into the nurse's station. Liam sat on a small cot, pale and miserable, clutching a plastic bucket. He looked so small. Ethan wanted to walk in there, scoop him up, take him home. But he couldn't, because on paper, legally, officially, he was nobody. Just some guy Claire was seeing. Not family, not authorized, not permanent. When Claire finally burst through the front doors, breathless and frantic, Ethan felt the distance between them more acutely than he ever had. "I'm here for Liam Dawson," she said to the secretary, barely glancing at Ethan. "Sign here, please." Claire scribbled her name, and the secretary disappeared into the nurse's office. A moment later, she emerged with Liam, who looked even worse up close. Claire crouched down, pressed a hand to his forehead, and murmured something soft and soothing. "Let's get you home, buddy." Liam nodded weakly, then noticed Ethan standing nearby. "Ethan came?" "Yeah, he did." Claire's voice caught slightly. She looked up, met Ethan's eyes. "Thank you for trying. I'm sorry I couldn't. It's not your fault." She stood, adjusting her grip on Liam. "I have to get him home. Can we talk later?" "Yeah, of course." She left without another word, Liam's head resting on her shoulder, and Ethan stood in the empty hallway feeling like he'd failed some test he hadn't known he was taking. That night, after Liam was asleep and the fever had broken slightly, Claire called him. "Hey," she said, and her voice sounded raw, exhausted. "How's he doing?" "Better, still miserable, but the Tylenol helped." A pause. "I'm sorry about today." "You don't have to apologize." "I do." She exhaled shakily. "I should have put you on the list weeks ago. I didn't think about it. And then when they wouldn't let you take him, I realized how stupid that was. You've been showing up for months, and I still haven't." Her voice cracked. "I'm still keeping you at arm's length." "Claire, no, let me finish." She took a breath. "I'm scared, Ethan. I'm so scared that if I let you all the way in, you'll leave. And I know that doesn't make sense, because you've already proven you're not going anywhere, but I can't stop waiting for it to happen." Ethan closed his eyes, leaned back against his couch. "What do you need from me?" "I don't know. Patience, I guess. And maybe a reminder that this is real." "It is real. For me, it's real." "I know." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm trying to believe that." They talked for another hour. About fear. About trust. About the men who'd left and the scars they'd carved into her ability to hope for anything different. Ethan listened, didn't try to fix it, just let her speak until the words ran dry. When they finally hung up, he sat in the dark for a long time, staring at nothing. He loved her. He'd known that for a while now, had felt it solidify somewhere between fixing her dishwasher and reading bedtime stories to her son. But love wasn't enough if she couldn't let him stay. The next morning, Ethan got a text from Claire. "Can you come over tonight after the kids are asleep?" "Yeah." "What time? 8:30? I'll be there." He spent the day distracted, running through a dozen possible conversations in his head. Maybe she was ending it. Maybe she'd realized this was too hard, too complicated. Maybe he'd pushed too much by showing up at the school, by trying to be something he wasn't officially allowed to be. By the time he pulled up to her house that night, his nerves were frayed. Claire answered the door before he could knock. She looked tired, but calmer than she'd sounded on the phone. "Hey." "Hey." She stepped aside to let him in. The house was quiet. The usual chaos settled into the background hum of a sleeping household. Claire led him to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of wine, and sat down at the small table. Ethan sat across from her, waiting. "I went to the school today," she said finally. "Added your name to the authorized pickup list. Both kids." Ethan blinked. "You did?" "Yeah." She met his eyes. "I should have done it months ago. I'm sorry." "You don't have to." "I do." She set her glass down, hands folding together tightly. "I've been keeping you in this weird, in-between space because I was too scared to admit what this actually is, what you actually are." "And what's that?" "You're not just my friend, Ethan. You're not just someone I'm dating." Her voice wavered. "You're part of our lives, part of my kids' lives. And that terrifies me because if you leave, I'm not leaving." "I know you say that. Claire, look at me." He leaned forward, his voice firm but gentle. "I'm not saying it to make you feel better. I'm saying it because it's true. I'm here. I'm staying, and I need you to start believing that." Tears welled in her eyes. "What if I can't? Then I'll keep showing up until you do." She let out a broken laugh, wiping at her eyes. "You're too good." "I'm not. I'm just sure." She stared at him for a long moment, then stood abruptly and crossed to where he sat. He barely had time to react before she was in his lap, arms wrapped around his neck, face buried against his shoulder. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry for making this harder than it has to be." Ethan held her, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other wrapped around her waist. "You don't have to apologize for being scared." "I don't want to be scared anymore." "Then let me in, all the way." She pulled back just enough to look at him, her face streaked with tears. "Okay." "Yeah?" "Yeah." She nodded, a small smile breaking through. "Okay." He kissed her then, soft and slow, and when they finally pulled apart, Claire rested her forehead against his. "I love you," she whispered. Ethan's breath caught. He hadn't expected that. Not tonight. "I love you too," he said, and meant it with every part of himself. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped up in each other in the quiet kitchen, the weight of months of fear and hesitation finally lifting. When Claire eventually pulled away, she was smiling, really smiling, the kind that reached her eyes. "Stay tonight," she said. "You sure?" "Yeah, the kids are asleep, and I don't want you to leave." "Then I won't." They moved to the couch, curled up together under a blanket, talking in low voices about everything and nothing. Claire told him about the first time she'd realized she was falling for him, somewhere around the second week, when he'd listened to her complain about insurance paperwork for 20 minutes and hadn't looked bored once. Ethan admitted he'd known the day she handed him $5 in the coffee shop, that spark of pride and independence that told him she wasn't someone who needed saving, just someone who deserved to be seen. "I almost didn't come back the next day," Claire said quietly. "I told myself it was weird to return the money, that you'd think I was being dramatic." "I'm glad you did." "Me too." Around midnight, they went upstairs. Ethan borrowed a t-shirt, brushed his teeth with a spare toothbrush Claire pulled from a drawer. They climbed into her bed, a space he'd never been in before, another wall coming down, and she fit herself against him like she'd been doing it for years. "This is nice," she murmured, already half asleep. "It is. Don't leave in the morning before the kids wake up." "I won't." "Promise?" "Promise." She fell asleep within minutes, her breathing evening out, her body relaxing fully for the first time since he'd known her. Ethan lay awake a while longer, staring at the dark ceiling, feeling the enormity of what had just shifted between them. This was real now. Not halfway, not conditional. Real. And he wasn't going anywhere. Morning came with the chaos of small children who had not been warned there would be a guest in the house. Liam burst into Claire's room at 6:45, yelling about a bad dream, and stopped dead when he saw Ethan. "Why is Ethan in your bed?" Claire, still half asleep, groaned. "Because he stayed over. Go back to your room, Liam." "But why is he in your bed?" Ethan sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Morning, Liam." Liam stared at him, processing. Then, with the blunt honesty of a 6-year-old, "Are you Mom's boyfriend now?" Claire's eyes shot open. She looked at Ethan, panicked, like she wasn't sure how to answer. Ethan looked at Liam. "Yeah, I am. Is that okay?" Liam considered this seriously. "Do you still like dinosaurs?" "Absolutely." "Okay, then it's okay." He turned and ran back out of the room, yelling down the hall. "Sophie, Ethan's mom's boyfriend now!" From the other room, Sophie's voice drifted back, unimpressed. "I already knew that." Claire buried her face in her hands, laughing. "Oh my God." Ethan grinned. "Well, that went well. They're never going to let this go." "Good." She lowered her hands, looked at him with something soft and vulnerable in her eyes. "You're really okay with this?" "With what? Being your boyfriend?" "Yeah, Claire, I'm really okay with it." She kissed him, quick and sweet, then climbed out of bed. "Come on. If we don't get downstairs, Liam's going to eat all the cereal and leave none for Sophie, and that's going to turn into a whole thing." They went downstairs together. Liam immediately started asking Ethan questions about whether he was going to move in, whether he'd bring Mia over, whether they could all get a dog. Sophie rolled her eyes at her brother but didn't object to Ethan making breakfast. It was loud, messy, chaotic, and Ethan had never felt more at home. Over the next few weeks, things settled into a new rhythm. Ethan stayed over more often. Claire stopped introducing him as a friend and started just saying, "This is Ethan," without qualifiers. They had dinner together most nights. Ethan brought Mia over one Saturday, and the 3 kids got along better than he had dared hope. Sophie appointed herself Mia's tour guide, showing her around the house like it was a museum. Liam insisted Mia see his entire dinosaur collection and was delighted when she responded with facts about space. They played in the yard, argued over board games, built a blanket fort that took up the entire living room. Claire and Ethan sat on the porch, watching through the window. "They're good together," Claire said. "They are. Mia's sweet. She likes your kids. She told me Sophie's cool and Liam's funny." Claire smiled. High praise. "Yeah." She leaned against him and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "I keep waiting for this to feel too fast," she said quietly. "But it doesn't." "No, it doesn't." "Is that weird?" "I don't think so. I think when something's right, it just fits. She tilted her head up to look at him. You really believe that? Yeah, I do. She kissed him, slow and certain, and when she pulled back, her eyes were bright. I'm glad you stayed, she whispered. Me too. Inside, the kids erupted into laughter over something, and Claire shook her head fondly. We should probably make sure they're not destroying the house. Probably. But neither of them moved. Not yet. They stayed there, wrapped up in each other, in the warmth of something that had started with $3 at a coffee shop and had grown into this, messy, complicated, real, and entirely theirs. The first real test came on a Tuesday evening in early November, when Claire's car died in the grocery store parking lot. She called Ethan from the driver's seat, kids in the back surrounded by bags of food that were slowly warming in the unseasonable heat. Her voice was strained, that particular edge of frustration that came from being the only adult responsible for solving every crisis. It just won't start. I've tried 3 times. The engine turns over, but nothing happens. Where are you? Safeway on Henderson. I'm sorry. I know you're probably still at work. I'm leaving now. 20 minutes. Ethan, you don't have to. Claire. His voice was firm but gentle. 20 minutes. He made it in 18. Found her leaning against the hood of her ancient Honda Civic, arms crossed, Sophie and Liam visible through the back window playing some hand-clapping game to pass the time. Claire's shoulders sagged with relief when she saw him. Thank you for coming. Of course. He popped the hood, peered inside at the engine. When's the last time you had it serviced? Honestly? I don't remember. 6 months? Maybe longer? Ethan pulled out his phone, turned on the flashlight, and started checking connections. Claire stood beside him, close enough that he could feel the tension radiating off her. I can't afford a new car right now, she said quietly. I'm barely keeping up with rent and childcare as it is. Let's figure out what's wrong first. Might be something simple. It wasn't simple. After 15 minutes of troubleshooting, Ethan determined the starter was shot. Replacing it would cost money Claire didn't have and time she couldn't spare. I'll call a tow truck, she said, pulling out her phone with shaking hands. Get it to a shop. Figure it out tomorrow. Or, Ethan said carefully, I can replace the starter myself. Parts will cost about $80. I can pick them up tonight, install it tomorrow after work. Claire stared at him. You know how to replace a starter? YouTube knows how to replace a starter. I just follow directions. Ethan, I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. She looked at him for a long moment, something complicated crossing her face. Then she nodded, eyes bright. Okay. Thank you. He drove them home, Claire in the passenger seat, kids in the back of his car arguing about whether dinosaurs or astronauts were cooler. When they pulled up to her house, Claire turned to him. Stay for dinner? You sure? It's late. You've had a long day. Stay. So he did. Dinner was leftovers reheated in the microwave, eaten standing at the counter because nobody had the energy to set the table properly. Liam talked non-stop about a kid at school who could do a backflip. Sophie complained about a group project where she was doing all the work. Claire moved through the kitchen on autopilot, cleaning as she went, her mind clearly elsewhere. After the kids were in bed, she found Ethan in the living room and collapsed beside him on the couch. I hate that car, she said to the ceiling. I know. I hate that I can't afford to replace it. I hate that I'm one breakdown away from not being able to get to work, not being able to get the kids to school. Her voice cracked. I hate feeling like I'm always one disaster away from everything falling apart. Ethan pulled her against him, and she came without resistance, tucking herself into his side. You're not going to fall apart, he said quietly. How do you know? Because you haven't yet, and because you're not doing this alone anymore. She was quiet for a moment. Then, so soft he almost missed it. I'm not used to that. I know. I'm not used to someone just showing up, fixing things, not expecting anything back. I'm not keeping score, Claire. I know. That's what scares me. She pulled back to look at him. What if I can't give you what you need? What if this is too much, and one day you wake up and realize you signed up for someone else's chaos and you're exhausted and you just leave? Ethan cupped her face, made her hold his gaze. I'm not going to wake up one day and decide you're too much. You know why? Why? Because I knew what I was signing up for. I saw the chaos, the mess, the broken car, and the tight budget, and the fact that you're carrying everything on your shoulders. And I'm still here. Not because I think it's going to get easier, but because I want to carry some of it with you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't know what I did to deserve you. You bought coffee with $8.23 and refused to let a stranger's kindness go unpaid. She laughed through the tears. That's a low bar. It's not. It told me everything I needed to know about who you are. She kissed him then, desperate and grateful, and Ethan kissed her back like he was trying to pour every promise he'd ever made into that single moment. When they finally pulled apart, Claire rested her forehead against his. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. The next day, Ethan left work early, picked up the starter and the tools he needed, and spent 2 hours in Claire's driveway covered in grease and frustration. Liam supervised, asking approximately 800 questions. Sophie brought him lemonade without being asked. And when Claire got home from work and saw her car running, she cried right there in the driveway. You fixed it! Told you I would! She threw her arms around him, not caring that he was filthy, and held on tight. Thank you, she said into his shoulder. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Liam tugged on Ethan's shirt. Does this mean you're going to live here now? Claire pulled back, looked at Ethan with wide eyes. Ethan crouched down to Liam's level. Not yet, buddy, but maybe someday. When? When your mom's ready. Liam turned to Claire. Are you ready? Claire laughed, a little breathless. I'm getting there. That night, after the kids were asleep, Claire brought it up. They were in her bed, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing absent patterns on her shoulder. Liam asked a good question, she said quietly. About me moving in? Yeah. We don't have to talk about that now. I want to. She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him. I've been thinking about it. A lot, actually. Ethan's heart kicked up, but he kept his voice steady. Yeah? It makes sense, logistically. You're here most nights anyway. It would be easier, cheaper, better for the kids to have consistency. She paused. But I'm scared. Of what? Of it being too fast, of you realizing you made a mistake, of the kids getting even more attached and then losing you if this doesn't work out. Claire. He sat up, turned to face her fully. I can't promise this will be perfect. I can't promise we won't fight or that there won't be hard days. But I can promise I'm not walking away. Not from you, not from Sophie and Liam. So if you're asking me to move in because you think it's the practical choice, I'll do it. But if you're asking me to move in because you actually want me here, because you're ready to build something permanent with me, then that's different. What's the difference? One of them comes from fear, the other comes from trust. She stared at him, eyes searching his face in the dim light. I want you here, she said finally. Not because it's practical, because I don't want to wake up anymore without you. Ethan's chest tightened. Then I'll be here. Just like that? Just like that. She kissed him, slow and deep, and when she pulled back, she was smiling. We should probably tell the kids. Probably. Liam's going to lose his mind. Sophie's going to pretend she doesn't care and then secretly be thrilled. Claire laughed. You know them so well. I pay attention. They told the kids the next morning at breakfast. Liam screamed and ran 3 laps around the kitchen. Sophie smiled into her cereal and said, cool, like it was no big deal, but Ethan caught the way her shoulders relaxed. Does this mean Mia's moving in too? Liam asked. Nobody. Mia lives with me half the time and with her mom the other half, so she'll be here sometimes, but not all the time. That's okay. She can have sleepovers. Exactly. Sophie looked up. Are you going to change stuff, like redecorate or whatever? Not unless your mom wants to. This is your home. I'm just joining it. Sophie nodded, satisfied. Okay, just don't touch my room. Wouldn't dream of it. Moving in was less dramatic than Ethan expected. He didn't have much. His apartment had always felt temporary, a place to sleep between custody exchanges and work shifts. Most of his belongings fit in his car, Clothes, books, a few kitchen items Claire's place didn't have. The furniture he left behind, either donated or sold. The first night he officially lived there, Claire made spaghetti and the kids decorated the table with drawings welcoming him home. Liam had drawn a T-Rex wearing a party hat. Sophie's was more subdued, just the words, "Welcome Ethan," in careful print, but she'd used her favorite markers. After dinner, Ethan helped with homework while Claire did laundry. He supervised bath time, read bedtime stories, tucked Liam in, and said goodnight to Sophie. When he came back downstairs, Claire was on the couch, folding towels. "This is my life now," she said, gesturing at the laundry. "Exciting, right?" Ethan sat beside her, picked up a towel, and started folding. "Wouldn't want to be anywhere else." She bumped his shoulder with hers. "Liar. I'm serious. You're going to get sick of this. The mess, the noise, the constant needs. Claire." He set down the towel, turned to face her. "I need you to stop waiting for me to leave." "I'm trying. Try harder." She looked at him, something raw in her expression. "What if I can't? What if I'm always going to be waiting for the other shoe to drop?" "Then I'll just have to keep proving you wrong, every single day, until you believe it." Her eyes filled. "That's a long commitment." "Good thing I'm not going anywhere." She kissed him, desperate and grateful, and Ethan kissed her back with all the certainty he'd been carrying since that first day in the coffee shop. The weeks that followed were an adjustment. Ethan learned the specific chaos of mornings in a house with 3 kids on different schedules. He figured out which arguments to step into and which to let Claire handle. He learned that Sophie needed space when she was upset, and Liam needed presence. He learned the exact tone Claire used when she was overwhelmed versus when she was genuinely angry. There were hard moments, nights when Claire snapped at him over something small because she was exhausted. Times when Ethan felt like an outsider in conversations about the kids' early years, memories he hadn't been part of. Moments when they had to navigate discipline and boundaries and whose authority applied when. But they talked through it, every time. No issue left to fester. One Saturday afternoon, Ethan was fixing the loose hinge on the bathroom door when Sophie appeared in the doorway. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." He set down the screwdriver, gave her his full attention. She shifted her weight, suddenly looking younger than her 9 years. "Are you going to marry my mom?" Ethan's heart stuttered. "That's a big question." "I know, but I want to know." He considered his answer carefully. Sophie deserved honesty, but not more weight than a kid should carry. "I love your mom," he said finally. "And I love you and Liam. I want to be part of this family for a long time. Marriage is something your mom and I would need to talk about together when we're both ready. But yeah, Sophie, someday I'd like that." Sophie processed this seriously. "Okay, good." "Why good?" "Because Liam really likes you, and if you left, it would make him sad. And Mom's happier now. She smiles more." Ethan's throat tightened. "I'm not planning on leaving." "I know, but the other guys said that too." There it was, the truth Sophie had been carrying, the reason she'd been watching him so carefully all these months. "You're right," Ethan said quietly. "They did. And I can't prove I'm different with words, but I can show you, every day, by being here, by keeping my promises. And if I ever break one, you can call me on it. Deal?" Sophie studied him for a long moment, then stuck out her hand. "Deal." They shook on it, formal and serious. And then Sophie went back to her room without another word. That night, Ethan told Claire about the conversation. "She asked if we're getting married," he said. Claire looked up from the bills she was sorting, eyes wide. "What did you say?" "That I'd like to. Someday. When we're both ready." "And she was okay with that?" "I think so. She's testing me, making sure I'm going to stay." Claire set down the bills, moved to sit beside him. "Are you? Even knowing it might take a long time for her to fully trust you, for any of us to fully trust this?" "Yes." "Just like that?" "Just like that." He took her hand. "Claire, I know you're all still healing. I know it's going to take time, but I'm not here because I think you're easy. I'm here because you're worth it, all of you." She leaned against him, and he wrapped an arm around her. "I don't know what I did to deserve you," she whispered. "You let me buy you a sandwich." She laughed wetly. Best $11 you ever spent. Absolutely. They sat in comfortable silence, the sounds of the house settling around them. Upstairs, Liam was singing to himself, something about dinosaurs ruling the world. The heater kicked on, warm air rushing through the vents. Outside, a car drove past, headlights briefly illuminating the living room. It was ordinary, unremarkable, and Ethan had never been happier. A few weeks later, Claire came home from work looking shaken. Ethan was in the kitchen making dinner, kids doing homework at the table. She walked in, set down her bag, and just stood there. "Hey," Ethan said, immediately concerned. "What's wrong?" "I ran into Marcus today." The name meant nothing to Ethan, but the way Claire said it, tight, careful, told him it should. "Who's Marcus?" "Sophie and Liam's dad." The kitchen went very quiet. Sophie's pencil stopped moving. Liam looked up from his math worksheet. "Go to your rooms for a few minutes," Claire said gently. "I need to talk to Ethan." "But, Mom," Liam started. "Now, please." They went, Sophie casting one last worried look over her shoulder. When they were alone, Claire sat heavily at the table. "I haven't seen him in almost 3 years," she said quietly. "He left when Liam was 3. Just decided he didn't want to be a dad anymore. Sent money for a while, then stopped. Changed his number, disappeared." Ethan sat across from her, waited. "He's back in town, saw me coming out of work, asked how the kids were." Her voice shook. "Like he has any right to ask. Like he didn't abandon them." "What did you say?" "I told him they're fine, that they don't need him showing up now, confusing them. He said he's changed, that he wants to make things right." She looked up, eyes blazing. "And I know that's bullshit. I know he'll disappoint them again. But what if he doesn't? What if he actually wants to be their dad now?" "Do you want him in their lives?" "No, God, no. But it's not about what I want. They're his kids. Legally, he has rights." Ethan reached across the table, took her hand. "What do you need from me?" "I don't know. She broke off, tears spilling over. "I'm scared. Scared he's going to hurt them. Scared they're going to choose him over the stability we've built. Scared you're going to realize this is too messy and complicated and, Claire, stop." His voice was firm. "I'm not going anywhere. You think your ex showing up changes how I feel about you, about the kids? It should. This is drama you didn't sign up for. I signed up for all of it, the good, the hard, the complicated. This is part of your life, which makes it part of mine now." She stared at him, tears streaming down her face. "How are you so sure?" she whispered. "Because I love you. And I love those kids upstairs." "And some deadbeat who walked away doesn't get to decide whether I stay." Claire stood abruptly, crossed to him, and climbed into his lap, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a tilting world. "I love you," she said into his neck. "I love you so much. I love you too, and we're going to figure this out. Together." She nodded against his shoulder, and they stayed like that until her breathing steadied. Upstairs, a door creaked open. Small footsteps on the stairs. Liam appeared in the doorway, clutching his stuffed triceratops. "Is everything okay?" he asked, voice small. Claire pulled back, wiped her eyes, and held out an arm. "Come here, buddy." Liam ran over, and Claire pulled him into the hug. A moment later, Sophie appeared, trying to look casual, but clearly worried. "You too," Ethan said, and Sophie came, letting herself be pulled into the tight circle of arms. "We're okay," Claire said firmly. "We're all okay." And in that moment, wrapped around the people who'd become his family, Ethan believed it. Marcus called 3 days later. Claire's phone rang during dinner, an unknown number lighting up the screen. She stared at it for 2 rings before answering, her voice careful and controlled. "Hello?" Ethan watched her face change, saw the tension pull her shoulders tight, the way her jaw set. "I told you I need time to think about this," she said quietly, standing and walking into the kitchen. "No, you can't just show up. They don't even remember you, Marcus." Ethan caught Sophie's eyes across the table. She'd stopped eating, fork frozen halfway to her mouth. "Who's on the phone?" Liam asked. "Finish your dinner, buddy," Ethan said gently. In the kitchen, Claire's voice rose slightly. "You don't get to disappear for 3 years and then demand visitation. That's not how this works." A pause. I don't care what your lawyer says. I'm their mother, and I'm not letting you disrupt their lives on a whim. Another pause, longer this time. Fine, we can meet, just us. No kids. Not until I know what you actually want. She hung up, stood there for a moment with her back to them, shoulders heaving. Ethan stood, cross to her. You okay? He wants to see them, says he's been in therapy, working on himself, wants to be a father again. She turned, eyes blazing with barely contained fury. 3 years, Ethan. 3 years of Sophie asking why Daddy doesn't call, of Liam forgetting what he looks like. And now he decides he's ready? What did you tell him? That I'll meet him first. See what he really wants. Make sure he's not going to hurt them again before I even consider letting him near them. When? Saturday, coffee shop downtown. She looked at him, something desperate in her expression. Will you come with me? You sure you want me there? I need you there. I need someone who's actually on my side. Always. Saturday came too fast. Claire was a wreck all morning, changing clothes 3 times, unable to eat breakfast, snapping at the kids over things that normally wouldn't bother her. Ethan got Sophie and Liam set up at his sister's place for the afternoon, then drove Claire downtown. She was silent the whole way, hands clenched in her lap. You don't have to do this, Ethan said quietly. You can cancel. Tell him to communicate through lawyers. No, I need to see him, need to look him in the eye and figure out if this is real or just another way for him to feel better about himself. They parked outside the coffee shop. Claire sat in the passenger seat, not moving. What if he's really changed, she asked. What if he's actually a good father now, and I kept the kids from him? Then you deal with that when you know it's true. But you're not wrong for protecting them, Claire. You're their mom. That's your job. She nodded, took a shaky breath, and got out of the car. Marcus was already inside, sitting at a table near the window. He looked different than Ethan had imagined. Younger, well-dressed, put together. Not the deadbeat loser Ethan had constructed in his mind. That somehow made it worse. He stood when Claire approached, started to reach for a hug, then stopped when she stiffened. Claire, you look good. Marcus. Her voice was ice. She gestured to Ethan. This is Ethan. He's living with us. Marcus's eyes flicked to Ethan, something unreadable crossing his face. Nice to meet you. Likewise. Ethan's tone made it clear it wasn't. They sat. Marcus ordered coffee. Claire ordered nothing. So, Claire said flatly, you wanted to talk. Marcus leaned back, trying to appear casual. I know I messed up. Walking away was the worst thing I've ever done. But I've been working on myself. Therapy, support groups. I'm in a better place now. I want to be part of their lives. Their lives have been fine without you. I'm sure they have. But I'm their father, Claire. I have rights. Rights? Claire's voice sharpened. You gave up your rights when you stopped paying child support, when you changed your number, when you made Sophie cry herself to sleep wondering what she did wrong. Marcus flinched. I know, and I'm sorry, but I'm here now. I want to make it right. How? By showing up for 6 months until it gets hard again? By making promises you can't keep? I'm different now. Prove it. Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then turned it to face Claire. Photos, recent ones, him at what looked like a therapy session, a certificate from some kind of parenting class, screenshots of job offers, apartment leases. I'm not asking to jump back in as their full-time dad, he said quietly. I know I have to earn that, but I'm asking for a chance, supervised visits, whatever you're comfortable with. I just want them to know I didn't forget them. Claire stared at the phone, her expression unreadable. They don't remember you, she said finally. Liam was 3 when you left. He has no memory of you. Sophie remembers, but not fondly. Then let me give them new memories. Why now? Why after 3 years? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Because I hit bottom, lost everything that mattered, and when I finally started putting myself back together, I realized the thing I regretted most was walking away from them, from you. Don't, Claire's voice cracked. Don't make this about us. There is no us. There hasn't been for years. I know. I'm not trying to get you back, Claire. I just want to be their dad. Ethan watched the whole exchange, every protective instinct screaming at him to intervene, to tell Marcus to leave and never come back. But this wasn't his decision. This was Claire's. Claire looked at Ethan, something desperate in her eyes. He nodded slightly, a silent reminder that whatever she chose, he'd support her. She turned back to Marcus. If I agree to this, and that's a big if, it's on my terms. You don't get to show up whenever you feel like it. You don't get to make promises you can't keep. And the second you hurt them, the second you disappoint them, you're done. Permanently. I understand. I'm serious, Marcus. They've been through enough. I won't let you put them through it again. I won't. I promise. Claire studied him for a long moment. I need time to talk to them, prepare them. You don't get to just walk back into their lives like nothing happened. How much time? As much as I need. And when I'm ready, we'll start small, one supervised visit at my house, with Ethan there. Marcus glanced at Ethan, clearly not thrilled with that condition, but nodded. Okay. And Marcus? Claire's voice went cold. If you screw this up, you don't get another chance. This is it. I know. She stood abruptly. I'll call you when I'm ready. She walked out without looking back. Ethan followed, catching up to her in the parking lot. She was shaking, arms wrapped around herself. You okay? I don't know. She looked up at him, eyes wet. Did I do the right thing? I think you did the brave thing, the hard thing. And yeah, I think it was right. What if he hurts them again? Then we deal with it, together. But Claire, you can't protect them from every possible hurt. All you can do is be there when it happens. She nodded, but he could see the fear etched in every line of her face. The conversation with Sophie and Liam happened that night, after they'd picked the kids up from Ethan's sister's place and returned home. Claire gathered them in the living room, Ethan sitting beside her on the couch, both kids on the floor looking up at them with wide, worried eyes. I need to talk to you about something important, Claire began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. It's about your dad. Your biological dad. Sophie's face went carefully blank. Liam looked confused. The one who left? Sophie asked quietly. Yes, he's back in town, and he wants to see you. Why? The question came out sharp, defensive. He says he's changed, that he wants to be part of your lives again. Sophie's eyes narrowed. He doesn't get to just come back. I know, sweetheart, and I told him that. But he's asked for a chance to see you, and I think we should consider it. I don't want to see him. Sophie's voice was firm, certain. Liam looked between them, still processing. Do I know him? Claire's face crumpled slightly. You were little when he left, baby. You might not remember him. Then why does he want to see me? Because you're his son, and he says he's sorry for leaving. Liam considered this with the serious expression of a 6-year-old trying to understand adult problems. Is he nice? I don't know. That's what we need to find out. Sophie crossed her arms. I don't want to find out. I don't need him. I have you. And Ethan. Ethan's chest tightened. He started to speak, but Claire got there first. Sophie, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But he's still your father, and if he really has changed, don't you think you deserve the chance to know him? No. Sophie's eyes were blazing now, tears threatening. He left us. He made you cry. He doesn't get to just come back and pretend everything's okay. I'm not saying everything's okay. I'm saying maybe we give him one chance. Just one. And if he messes up, he's gone. Forever. What if he hurts Liam? Liam doesn't remember him. What if he gets attached and then Dad leaves again? Claire reached out, pulled Sophie close. Then we'll deal with it, together, all of us. But sweetheart, I can't make this decision for you. If you really don't want to see him, I'll tell him no. Sophie was quiet for a long time, pressed against her mother's side. Finally, in a small voice, would it make you happy if we saw him? This isn't about making me happy. This is about what's right for you and Liam. But would it? Claire pulled back, looked Sophie in the eye. Honestly, I don't know. Part of me wants to protect you from him forever, but part of me thinks maybe you deserve the chance to decide for yourself whether he gets to be in your life. Sophie looked at Liam, then at Ethan. What do you think? Ethan chose his words carefully. I think your mom's right. This is your choice. But I also think people can change, sometimes, and maybe it's worth finding out if he really has. Will you be there? When he comes? If you want me to be. I want you to be. Then I'll be there. Sophie nodded slowly, then turned to her mother. Okay, one chance, but if he's mean or if he makes you sad, he has to leave. Deal. Liam, who'd been quietly absorbing everything, finally spoke up. Does this mean Ethan's not my dad anymore? Everyone froze. Buddy, Ethan said gently, I'm not your dad. Your biological dad is your dad. I'm Ethan. But you live with us, and you help with my homework, and you fix Mom's car. That's what dads do. Ethan's throat closed up. He looked at Claire, who had tears streaming down her face. You're right, Ethan managed. That is what dads do. But your biological dad wants a chance to do those things too. Can I have two dads? Claire let out a choked laugh. Yeah, baby, I think you can. Liam seemed satisfied with this answer. Sophie, still tucked against her mother's side, whispered, I don't want two dads. I just want Ethan. I know, sweetheart, Claire whispered back, but we're going to try, okay? Okay. Claire called Marcus the next day and set up a visit for the following Sunday. 1 hour, at the house, with Ethan present. The week leading up to it was tense. Sophie withdrew, spending more time in her room. Liam asked endless questions about his dad that Claire couldn't fully answer, and Claire barely slept, second-guessing the decision constantly. What if this is a mistake? She asked Ethan one night, both of them lying in bed staring at the ceiling. What if it's not? I can't watch them get hurt again. Then we won't let them. If he shows any sign of flaking, we pull the plug, immediately. She rolled toward him, pressed her face against his shoulder. I'm so tired of being scared. I know. I want to just be happy, without waiting for everything to fall apart. Then let's do that. How? He turned to face her, cradled her face in his hands. By trusting that we've built something strong enough to handle whatever comes. By believing that the people in this house love each other enough to get through the hard stuff. You really believe that? Yeah, I do. She kissed him, soft and lingering. I love you. I love you too. Sunday arrived cold and gray. Marcus showed up exactly on time, carrying a bag that presumably held gifts for the kids. Claire answered the door, Ethan standing slightly behind her, Sophie and Liam hovering in the living room. Hi, Marcus said, and his voice was uncertain, nervous. Come in. Claire stepped aside. Marcus entered, his eyes immediately finding the kids. Sophie stared at him with open hostility. Liam looked curious but wary. Hi, Sophie. Liam. Marcus's voice cracked slightly. You've both gotten so big. Sophie said nothing. Liam stepped closer to Ethan. Why don't we sit down? Claire suggested, gesturing toward the couch. They arranged themselves awkwardly. Marcus on one end of the couch, Sophie on the other end pressed against her mother, Liam on the floor near Ethan's feet. The silence stretched. I brought you something, Marcus said finally, pulling out wrapped packages. I wasn't sure what you liked, but I tried. He handed them over. Sophie took hers reluctantly. Liam opened his immediately. A dinosaur encyclopedia. Actually a good choice. Sophie's was a book too, one of the popular middle-grade series. Thank you, Liam said politely. Sophie said nothing. Sophie, Claire prompted gently. Thanks, Sophie muttered. Marcus swallowed hard. I know this is weird, and I know you probably don't want me here, but I want you to know that leaving was the biggest mistake of my life, and I'm so sorry. You made Mom cry, Sophie said flatly. I know. And you forgot Liam's birthday 3 times. I know. So why should we believe you're going to stay now? Marcus's composure cracked. Because I've changed. Because I've spent the last year learning how to be a better person. Because I miss you both so much it physically hurts. That's not our problem. Sophie's voice was ice cold, and Ethan felt a surge of pride at her strength. You're right, it's not, but I'm asking for a chance to prove I can be the father you deserve. We already have Ethan. Marcus glanced at Ethan, something complicated crossing his face. I know, and I'm glad you have someone who's been there for you, but I'm your dad, and I want to be part of your life. You left, Sophie said, and now her voice was shaking. You chose to leave. You don't get to just come back. Sophie, Claire started. No, Mom, he doesn't. Sophie stood, tears streaming down her face now. He left us. He left you when you needed help. He left Liam when he was a baby, and now he thinks he can just show up with presents and say sorry and everything will be okay. It's not okay. It's never going to be okay. She ran upstairs. A door slammed. Marcus looked stricken. Claire stood, started to follow Sophie, then stopped. I should go, Marcus said quietly. Yeah, Claire agreed. Liam, still on the floor, looked up at Marcus. Are you going to come back? Do you want me to? Liam thought about it seriously. I don't know, maybe? But you have to be nice to Sophie. She's sad about you. Marcus's eyes filled. I know, buddy. I'm going to try to make it better. Okay. Marcus stood, looked at Claire. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset her. I know, but she has a right to be upset. Yeah. He headed for the door, paused. Can I try again? In a few weeks? Claire looked at Ethan. He gave a small nod. Call me, she said. We'll figure it out. After Marcus left, Claire went upstairs to Sophie. Ethan stayed with Liam, who was flipping through the dinosaur book. That was weird, Liam said. Yeah, it was. Do you think he'll come back? I don't know. Maybe. Sophie doesn't like him. She's hurt and scared. Are you scared? Ethan pulled Liam into his lap. A little, but not of your dad coming back. I'm scared of you and Sophie getting hurt. We won't get hurt. You won't let us. The faith in that statement broke something open in Ethan's chest. I'll try my best, buddy. That's what dads do. Yeah, that's what dads do. Upstairs, Claire found Sophie curled on her bed, crying into her pillow. Claire sat beside her, ran a hand through her hair. I hate him, Sophie sobbed. I know. I hate that he left. I hate that he's back. I hate that Liam doesn't remember him. I hate all of it. I know, baby. I know. Why did he leave? What did we do wrong? Claire's heart shattered. Nothing. You did nothing wrong. He left because he wasn't strong enough to stay. That's on him, not you. Then why does it feel like my fault? Because when people we love hurt us, we always wonder what we could have done differently. But Sophie, listen to me. You were a perfect daughter. You are a perfect daughter. His leaving had nothing to do with you. Sophie cried harder, and Claire held her, rocking her like she was small again. I don't want to see him again, Sophie whispered. Then you don't have to. But what about Liam? Liam can make his own choice. You don't have to do this for him. What if he wants to see Dad? What if he likes him more than Ethan? That's not going to happen. How do you know? Because Ethan has been here every day, showing up, being present, being the kind of father you both deserve. That doesn't just go away because your biological dad shows up. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Do you think Ethan would be my real dad if I wanted him to be? Claire's breath caught. What do you mean? Like, legally, can he adopt me? I don't know. That's a big conversation, one we'd all need to have together. Would you want that? Claire pulled back, looked Sophie in the eye. Honestly, yeah, I would. But that's something Ethan and I would need to talk about first. Sophie nodded, seemed satisfied with that answer, and curled back into her mother's side. They stayed like that for a long time. That night, after both kids were asleep, Claire told Ethan about the adoption question. She asked if you could be her real dad, Claire said quietly. They were on the porch, wrapped in blankets against the cold. Ethan stared at her. She said that? Yeah. Asked if you could adopt her. What did you tell her? That it's something we'd need to talk about. Claire turned to face him fully. So let's talk about it. Claire, I'm serious. Would you want that? To legally adopt them? Ethan's throat was tight. Are you asking me? I'm asking if it's something you'd consider. If Marcus stays gone, or if he's in their lives but not as their primary father figure, would you want to make it official? Yes. The answer came without hesitation. Yeah, I would. Claire's eyes filled. Really? Claire, I love those kids like they're already mine. If there's a way to make that official, to give them the security of knowing I'm not going anywhere, then yes, absolutely. She kissed him, desperate and grateful, and when she pulled back, she was crying. I want that too, she whispered. I want us to be a real family, legally, officially, all of it. Then let's do it. Just like that? Just like that. She laughed, a broken, beautiful sound. We should probably get married first. Ethan's heart stopped. Is that a proposal? Maybe. Is that an acceptance? Claire Dawson, are you asking me to marry you? I think I am. Then, yeah. My answer is yes. She kissed him again, and this time it felt like a promise, like the final wall coming down. Like the future they'd been building in fragments finally clicking into place as something whole. They told the kids the next morning at breakfast. We have something to tell you, Claire said, and both Sophie and Liam looked up from their cereal with identical expressions of concern. What's wrong? Sophie asked immediately. Nothing's wrong. Actually, something's really right. Claire looked at Ethan, smiled. Ethan and I are getting married. There was a beat of silence. Then Liam screamed and jumped out of his chair, running around the kitchen in circles. Sophie's face broke into the biggest smile Ethan had seen from her in weeks. Really? Sophie asked. Really? Ethan confirmed. Does that mean you'll be our stepdad? If you'll have me. Sophie stood, walked around the table, and hugged him tight. You're already our dad. Ethan held her, blinking back tears, and felt Claire's hand find his shoulder. So we're going to be a real family? Liam asked, bouncing on his toes. We already are, buddy, Claire said. But yeah, we're going to make it official. The wedding was small and simple, held in Claire's backyard on a Saturday afternoon in early spring. Just close family and a handful of friends. Sophie and Liam stood beside them as they exchanged vows, Mia beaming from the front row next to Ethan's sister. When the officiant asked if anyone had objections, Liam stage whispered, I don't object, and everyone laughed. Claire cried through her vows. Ethan's voice shook during his, and when they kissed, the kids cheered louder than anyone. At the reception, which was really just a potluck in the same backyard, Sophie pulled Ethan aside. Can I ask you something? Always. When you adopt us, can I change my last name to yours? Ethan's chest tightened. If that's what you want, yeah. It is. I want us all to have the same name, like a real family. We're already a real family, Sophie. I know, but I want everyone else to know it too. He pulled her into a hug, and she held on tight. I love you, Ethan. It was the first time she'd said it out loud. I love you too, kiddo. Across the yard, Claire was dancing with Liam, his small feet standing on top of hers. Mia had joined them, the three of them laughing at something. The sun was setting, golden light spilling across the patchy lawn, and everything was imperfect and chaotic and exactly right. Later, after the guests had left and the kids were asleep and the yard was a mess of paper plates and deflated balloons, Claire and Ethan sat on the porch steps. We did it, Claire said softly. Yeah, we did. I keep waiting to wake up, for this to not be real. It's real. She leaned against him. Thank you. For what? For staying, for proving me wrong, for loving us even when it was hard. Claire, loving you has never been hard. She looked up at him, eyes bright in the darkness. Even with all the baggage, the ex, the scared kids, the broken car, the tight budget? Especially with all of that. That's the real stuff. That's what makes it worth it. She kissed him, slow and certain. I love you. I love you too. Inside, something crashed. Then Liam's voice. It wasn't me! Claire laughed, shaking her head. Duty calls. I'll get it, Ethan said, standing. No, we'll get it. Together. They walked inside hand in hand, ready to face whatever chaos awaited them. Because that's what they did now. They faced it together. And somewhere in a coffee shop across town, a new transaction was taking place. Someone short on change, someone else stepping in to help, a small kindness that might grow into something bigger. The world kept turning, kept offering second chances and new beginnings to anyone brave enough to take them. But Ethan wasn't thinking about that. He was thinking about his wife asleep upstairs, about the kids who called him Dad, about the life they'd built from broken pieces and stubborn hope. He was thinking about how $3.24 had changed everything. And he was thinking that he'd do it all again in a heartbeat.